The first time I saw her, I thought she was an illusion. Not in the typical mirage in the desert sense, but the way legends sometimes manifest in flesh and bone. Her hair was a cascade of silver, reflecting the neon lights of the orbital station above New Terra. Her eyes, an impossible violet, seemed to pierce through my very essence. I was just an interstellar courier then, hauling contraband between sectors in a freighter that smelled perpetually of engine oil and recycled air. My life was predictable. Wake, load, fly, evade, deliver, repeat. But that day, when the automated doors hissed open to Dock 9, she stepped out of a shimmering transport pod and into my life, and everything changed. You must be Orion, she said, her voice melodic, yet commanding. She didn't introduce herself further. No greeting. No formality. Just assertion. Yeah, I stammered. You're? She smiled, a small tilt of her lips that made my stomach tighten. I am Seraphine Val'Kora, heiress of the Val'Kora dynasty, she said, as if those words explained everything. But they didn't. Dynasties and noble bloodlines mattered little to me in the cargo lanes. I barely noticed them on the news. I was too busy worrying if a smuggler gang would try to hijack my ship. Yet Seraphine did something no one else had done. She looked at me like I mattered. Not like a pawn, not like a worker, not like a nobody, but like a partner, or perhaps something more. I blinked, trying to process. Partner? She chuckled softly. Not in business. In a life. Before I could respond, a holographic projection shimmered into existence above her palm. The image displayed intricate lines of code, contract clauses, and legal seals that I didn't even know existed outside elite corporate circles. You're going to need to read this, she said. I frowned. Read what? I barely know you. And honestly, I'm a courier, not a husband, she interrupted, her violet eyes steady. Correct. I laughed nervously. Wait, what? Seraphine didn't laugh. She pressed a small button and the holographic contract expanded. Words I couldn't have imagined filled the air. Binding life partnership, mutual consent of guardianship, interstellar inheritance rights, and security clause alpha zeta. I stared at it, frozen. This is marriage? Yes, she said simply. By your silence, you are acknowledging it. I choked on the air I was breathing. By silence? You can't. Silence is consent under the Val'Kora Accords, she said. And you were given time to object. Yet here you are, unmoving, silent, which legally counts as agreement. I couldn't process. My brain scrambled over every survival scenario I'd faced in the cargo lanes, every pirate ambush, every engine failure. But this was beyond comprehension. I was married to someone I had met 10 minutes ago, and she expected me to accept it. Look, I finally stammered. I'm honored or flattered, I think, but I don't even know how. How to be my husband, she finished for me. Her tone softened slightly, almost affectionate now. Then we'll learn together. That is the point of this arrangement. Despite my better judgment, despite the rising panic in my chest, I found myself nodding. Something about her, something about the certainty in her voice, made me incapable of saying no. The next weeks were surreal. Seraphine moved into my cramped freighter cabin as if she'd always belonged there. She insisted on overseeing my cargo runs, which I normally did solo, and her insight was astonishing. She calculated optimal flight paths through asteroid belts, negotiated with spaceport authorities with a confidence I could barely follow, and even talked down a gang of black market traders trying to extort me. And yet, every night, she would sit across from me at the small table in the galley, sipping some exotic beverage from a crystal vial, watching me. I never knew whether to feel nervous or flattered, or both. Banshees. Yet Seraphine remained unnervingly calm. She issued orders, rerouted power, and even hacked into the pirate comms to confuse them. At one point, a missile locked onto our engines. I braced for impact, expecting the end of everything. But Seraphine acted, her hands dancing across the holographic interface. The missile exploded harmlessly off our shields. We survived. Barely. And when the adrenaline faded, we were sitting side by side in the cockpit, breathing heavily. I looked at her, and for the first time, the absurdity of our situation hit me fully. "I can't believe I'm married to someone like you," I whispered. She laughed softly. "And I can't believe I found someone like you." Days turned into weeks, and the unusual routine of our marriage began to settle. We navigated trade routes, avoided bounty hunters, and occasionally attended formal Val'Kora gatherings, which were an entirely different brand of surreal. Imagine a ballroom suspended in zero gravity, nobles floating in elegant garments, conversing in languages I couldn't understand, while Seraphine introduced me as her husband. Every time, I had to suppress the urge to laugh or faint. Yet, amidst the chaos, something strange happened. I began to care. Deeply. More than I thought possible in such a short time. And I realized with a shock that I wasn't just surviving this marriage, I was thriving. One evening, as we watched the twin suns of Nova Epsilon dip below the horizon, Seraphine reached for my hand. Her touch was warm, grounding, and entirely hers. "You're silent," she observed. I shook my head, just thinking about how insane this is. And yet, I don't regret it. She tilted her head, studying me with curiosity. "Regret is a human emotion," she said. "But love is choice. You are choosing to stay, Orion." And in that moment, I understood. The contract didn't compel me. The contract had given us a framework, a beginning. But everything else, the care, the trust, the strange, terrifying affection, was ours to cultivate. The real test came when the Galactic Council, hearing rumors of a Val'Kora heir consorting with a lowly human courier, demanded an investigation. Our lives, our freedoms, were on the line. In the council chamber, Seraphine stood tall, regal as ever, while I stood beside her, heart pounding. They questioned our marriage, our intentions, and my worthiness. I wanted to shrink into a corner, but Seraphine's gaze met mine, steady and unwavering. "Orion," she said quietly, "speak truth. Tell them why this matters." I cleared my throat. "Because," I said, my voice stronger than I expected, "this marriage isn't about power or titles or contracts. It's about trust. It's about respect. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be better, not just richer or stronger. And she makes me want that." The council fell silent. Even the most skeptical officials seemed stunned. Seraphine smiled, a soft, victorious curl of her lips. She had chosen me, yes, but in that moment I realized I had chosen her too. Months later, after surviving pirates, council scrutiny